welcome. Today we're going to look at Normal Sucks by Jonathan Mooney, which is about why normal sucks, pretty obviously, I would say. Before we do that, a few ways you can support the channel. Number one is to become a patron at patreon.com/CurtisMcHale. Number two is to support the channel by taking one of my courses on Skillshare. They're all linked below. I'm actually just going to start working on a course on how to read, but I did one recently on how to do Zettelkasten, and so take notes on books like I do. That's how you can support it. Now let's dive into Why Normal Sucks by Jonathan Mooney. I was just talking last week with my friend's kid while we were at skiing about who wants to be normal anyway. Like, who wakes up and says, hey, let's be really average. And yet we still use this idea of average, of normality, as a way to like have an in-group and an out-group. And that's what Jonathan Mooney really tries to deal with. It's actually very similar to a book I read earlier called The End of Average, which again is about being average and what average is defined as. And most of the like average height for men, average height for women, all this stuff was based on a bunch of college dudes in, what is it, like 1950s or something. And what they did was average that everyone should be trying to meet with. That was the normal that we should be trying to hit, which is super freaking lame. And that's how we define normal and how we act normal, air quotes. And as David Brooke calls it, it's kind of the moral ecology in which we live. That's out of the second mountain, the group of beliefs under which we live. And now, average and normal are often tossed around interchangeably, which you've heard me do already. But no one actually fits it, right? I may be average height. I'm about 5'9". I round slightly. I'm 5'8" and a bit. I'm 5'9", but then if I look at, say, my waist size is a really good one for my legs. I do a lot of cycling. So I'm like a medium waist XL butt, 2XL quad, and a 5XL calf because I have very large calves. So I'm not average in that way, right? I am technically I'm obese according to the body mass index, but then when you look at each one of my legs, which are very muscular, you say, well, how could he actually be obese? Like I look like a 40-year-old dude. I got a little bit of a belly, but not a lot. I run, I ride, do all this other stuff. So I don't actually fit into the full average because nobody does. Nobody does. Nobody does at all. We even bring this into education when we look at what is average, where should kids hit, right? So should you be reading by the end of grade 1? Yes, you should, but why? You should be reading by the end of grade 1. That's why it's defined as normal. So mostly so that teachers can give you workbooks and you can do them. It has very little to do with actually like anything past that. There's no, like, I haven't seen a study. I've seen lots of studies that say as long as you read by the time you're like, I think it's 11 or 12, like you're just good to go. There's no problems by the time you're 20. But we push it in schools and you're behind the curve, mostly to ease the job of teachers. And I love teachers. I don't want to say that. They do not fall in, now, teachers don't necessarily set these standards. It's the education system that sets a standard that teachers have to try and live up to, even though it's like nigh on impossible. Yeah. And even looking at the case against education, right, that most of what school does after, I think it was like grade 9 or 10, I have to look up the numbers exactly, is signal conformity. So really what we're doing by hitting the averages in school is signaling conformity to future employers so that we can be more hireable. That's it. They say, you'll follow the rules at school, you'll clearly follow the rules for me. That's mostly what school is about after grade 9. After you learn the basics of math, of these basic things. I even had a discussion with my friend Justin on Twitter recently where his kids were like, why are you doing long division, Dad? Do you use this? And he says, no, I never use it. This is what calculators are for. This is what computers are for, or the internet is for. Like, you don't need any of this stuff. You will never use it. You're much more useful is how do you write a business plan? How do you incorporate? How do you do your taxes? Like, those are far more useful math things that everyone will use. And the only people that are going to be using long division long-term are mathematicians and math teachers. That's it. Now, one interesting chapter 4, where Mooney spends most of his time looking at the eugenics movement, which is racist, really racism, ultimately. It defines what normal is, and then you try to stop the people that aren't normal from breeding. It's the shortest version of this terrible thing. And looking at how that fell out of favor, but most of our genetic research facilities in universities and colleges were literally live with the legacy of the eugenics roots, and they don't address it well, and they continue to push that forward, right? And we saw in Invisible Women as well that you just don't, they don't work with women because women are a little bit harder than men because there's extra hormones. But that also means that women have worse outcomes in lots of medical things. Like women present differently for heart attacks compared to men, but we all do all heart attack stuff based on how men present, even if it's a woman. And like that comes out of all that stuff, right? It's too hard to work on women, so we just don't do it. So now, do I recommend the book? Overall, I enjoyed Mooney's discussion on it. It's more memoir. End of Average is a little more, we'll say sciencey based, like a little more academic. And Mooney's is more a memoir of living with ADHD and why normal is stupid. So I think that I would read, if you're into memoirs, if you like a little bit more memoir, a little less technical stuff, then Mooney's book is better. If you like a little more technical stuff, a little less memoir, The End of Average is better. That's it. If you liked the video, thumbs up below. If you loved it, subscribe, hit the bell. YouTube will let you know stuff's happening. Other ways to support the channel: to become a patron at patreon.com/CurtisMcHale. Or you can take one of my courses at Skillshare. If you go to curtismchale.ca/Skillshare, that'll take you there. And then you can find my courses there, or you can just see them linked below. They're all affiliate links, so I get a little bit. It costs you nothing, but I get $10 for every one of you that signs up to Skillshare. Other things, we have a Discord channel now. It's below. We talk about some of the books. We're actually just reading, what is it? The Organized Mind. Looking around, I don't see it. We're reading The Organized Mind right now, and we'll be discussing that probably right around the time you see this video. So we'll be voting soon as well on our next book. So we'll do kind of a monthly book club, and none of you get to pick. I'm going to suggest books. That's it. Have a good one. Thanks for watching.